Have you ever wondered what would happen if Luffy never ate a devil fruit? Instead, what if he was a swordsman, much like Shanks or even Zoro? Sounds crazy, right? But hold on. Would that mess with Zoro's dream? If Luffy also became a swordsman, would it create a rivalry between them, or would it push Zoro even harder to claim the title of the world's greatest swordsman? And here's the real question. Would Luffy's dream change? Instead of wanting to be the king of the pirates, would he aim to be the strongest swordsman in the world and the pirate king? Would his fighting style still have that wild, reckless energy, or would he become a more disciplined warrior? Maybe he'd still swing his sword with the same carefree spirit, or maybe, just maybe, he'd be an even bigger menace in battle, a swordsman who fights purely on instinct. Let's rewind history for a second. What if Shanks never brought the Gomu Gomu no Mi to Fuchsia Village? Instead of gaining rubber powers, young Luffy trains with a wooden sword, inspired by Shanks' swordsmanship. When Shanks loses his arm to save him from the Sea King, he doesn't hand Luffy his iconic straw hat. Instead, he entrusts him with his sword, Griffin, a weapon that becomes Luffy's greatest treasure and a symbol of their bond. Fast forward to his first adventure. Luffy meets Kobe just like in the original story and takes down the Alvida pirates. But this time, there's no stretching or rubber punches. Luffy fights with pure swordplay. And to keep things fair, let's assume he hasn't awakened Haki yet. This change also affects his ideology. When Kobe asks why he wants to be the Pirate King, Luffy declares to prove you don't need devil fruits or armies, just a loyal crew and a blade that never breaks. Now, here's where things get interesting. In Shellstown, Luffy meets Zoro, but unlike the original story, there's a major clash of dreams. Luffy doesn't just want the world's greatest swordsman by his side, he wants to be the world's greatest swordsman and Pirate King. This directly conflicts with Zoro's own ambition, but for the sake of the story, let's say Zoro still joins Luffy's crew after they defeat Morgan. The difference? He does so under one condition. When Luffy becomes Pirate King, they'll face off in a final duel to settle who is truly the greatest swordsman. Now, everything stays mostly the same until the Baratie arc. Luffy and his crew still take down Buggy in Orangetown, recruit Usopp in Syrup Village, and sail onward. But at Baratie, this is where things take a serious turn, because this time, Mihawk enters the stage. In the original story, it was Zoro who challenged Mihawk and suffered a crushing defeat, vowing never to lose again. But here, things escalate. Both Luffy and Zoro stepped forward to challenge the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawk smirks, amused. Two fledglings? This should be entertaining. Rather than taking them on separately, Mihawk invites both to strike at once. Luffy and Zoro attack together. Luffy's wild, instinct-driven swings alongside Zoro's refined yet predictable strikes. But Mihawk barely moves. With effortless grace, he parries every blow, dismantling their offense in an instant. Your form lacks discipline, he tells Luffy, and you, he glances at Zoro, are too easy to read. Then, with a flick of his blade, he splits them apart, forcing one-on-one duels. Zoro steps up first, and just like in the original, he's utterly overwhelmed. One swift strike, and Zoro is down, his pride shattered, but his resolve stronger than ever. Mihawk respects his spirit, but leaves him in defeat. Then comes Luffy. Unlike Zoro, his chaotic, Shanks-inspired swordplay actually catches Mihawk's interest for a moment, but it's nowhere near enough. With a flick of his wrist, Mihawk disarms him. You swing your sword like it's an extension of your soul, but without Haki, it's just noise. And with that, he cuts Luffy down. Not as brutally as Zoro, but enough to make his loss undeniable. Zoro still makes his iconic vow never to lose again, but Luffy, for the first time, his will wavers. Yet, as we all know, Luffy doesn't stay broken for long. Instead, he makes a new promise. One day, he'll forge his own black blade. Mihawk acknowledges them both before leaving, saying, "When you've become stronger, seek me out. I'll be waiting." But the nightmare isn't over. There's still Don Krieg. Now here's the problem. Luffy is battered, Zoro is critically injured, and the crew is at its weakest. And this time, Sanji takes center stage. In the original, he had a tough battle with Gin, but here, he's the main fighter against Krieg. With the Baratie at risk, Sanji takes on Krieg directly, pushing himself to the limit. Even though Luffy is weakened, his spirit refuses to break. Just when it seems like Krieg might take the upper hand, Luffy forces himself up, dragging his blade forward. And in one final decisive moment, he helps Sanji land the finishing blow. Not only that, Sanji's introduction changes significantly. Instead of seeing Luffy as the one who saved the Baratie, he now sees Zoro and Luffy as reckless dreamers who nearly got themselves killed. But the important question now, will Sanji join Luffy's crew? You see, Sanji sees Luffy and Zoro as two stubborn idiots chasing an impossible dream. But he respects them because despite being broken and bloody, they still refuse to give up. Even after losing to Mihawk, both Luffy and Zoro are already talking about training harder and surpassing him. So if you ask me, I think, yeah, Sanji will indeed join the crew, but this time, he's not just inspired, he's intrigued by Luffy and Zoro's sheer determination despite failure. Everything unfolds as it did in the original. Arlong Park falls, Nami officially joins, and the crew sets sail for the Grand Line where they meet Chopper as well as ask him to join. But when they reach Alabasta, this is where things take a dark turn. Zoro's fight plays out the same, but Luffy, without the Gomu Gomu no Mi, his battle against Crocodile is a whole different nightmare. In the original story, Luffy's rubber body gave him some edge, allowing him to tank hits and eventually counter Crocodile's sand-based attacks. But here, he has zero defense. One touch from Crocodile's sand fruit could drain the moisture from his body, killing him instantly. In their first battle, Luffy goes in with nothing but raw swordsmanship, trying to land a decisive blow, but it's useless. Every strike he makes cuts through empty air as Crocodile dissolves into sand and reforms effortlessly. Then, with a cruel smirk, Crocodile drives his golden hook straight into Luffy, mocking him. A swordsman against a Logia who doesn't even know hockey? You might as well be swinging a stick at the wind. Luffy collapses, completely helpless, and just like in the original, Robin saves him from certain death. When the second fight rolls around, Luffy returns with a desperate plan. This time, he wields a water-soaked sword. With every string, droplets of water coat Crocodile's body, preventing him from fully dispersing. For the first time, Luffy lands hits. Crocodile is momentarily surprised, but he quickly adapts. He evades direct strikes, uses his abilities to dry up all the surrounding water, and then move in. Before Luffy can react, Crocodile grabs him again, draining his body of moisture a second time. This time, he leaves Luffy closer to death than ever. And then comes the final battle. In the original, Luffy used his own blood to counter Crocodile's powers, delivering the finishing blow with Gum Gum Storm. But now, Luffy, barely clinging to life, realizes he only has one shot left. Instead of blood, he soaks his sword in a mix of water and his own sweat, forcing his body to keep moving despite the pain. Crocodile watches, unimpressed. Luffy swings wildly, unpredictable and recklessly. He manages to cut Crocodile again, proving that he's still in the fight. But Crocodile, he's still stronger, faster, more experienced, and more ruthless. With his sand-based abilities, he dodges the final strike and counters in an instant. Before Luffy can react, he loses. This time, there's no last-minute comeback, no miraculous victory, no heroic turnaround. The Straw Hats lose. Crocodile reclaims Alabasta, the rebellion crumbles, and the kingdom falls back under his control. And perhaps the most devastating consequence? Robin never joins the crew. With Crocodile still in power, she remains trapped under his influence, never given the chance to escape. For the first time in their journey, the Straw Hats leave defeated. And now, the question isn't just how they move forward, but whether they'll even survive what's coming next. The Straw Hats may have lost Alabasta, but they're not broken. Even after their crushing defeat, they make one promise: they will return. They swear to free Alabasta once they become strong enough. But this time, Luffy doesn't just walk away in frustration. He remembers something: Crocodile mocking him about hockey. At the time, he didn't understand, but now he has to. This realization changes everything. In this timeline, Luffy might learn hockey way earlier than he was supposed to, but the big question is, who will train him? The crew barely escapes Alabasta, possibly with Vivi's help. With no log post to Skypiea, they scale toward the next logical destination, Water 7, hoping to repair their ship Going Merry that took too much damage. But there's a problem. No gold from Skypiea means no money. No money means no ship upgrade. And without that, they never meet Frankie as well. Once in Water 7, the Straw Hats face a harsh truth. Fixing their ship isn't enough. They need real power if they ever want to take on Crocodile again. That's when they decide it's time to train. Just like in the original 2-year time skip, the crew splits up. Zoro seeks out Mihawk, determined to push his swordsmanship beyond its limits. Sanji secretly follows a revolutionary army ship bound for Momoiro Island, unknowingly setting himself up for hellish training. Nami, stuck in Water 7, meets an old explorer who reveals he has a log pose locked onto Sky Island. She hitches a ride to Jaya and finds a way to reach Skypiea. Usopp, still determined to become a brave warrior of the sea, sets out blindly and, through sheer luck and a lot of fear, ends up on Boyne Archipelago. There, he learns to use pop greens and strengthens his body. Chopper, shaken by how close Luffy and Zoro came to dying, realized that raw strength alone alone isn't enough. He hears rumors about an island with ancient medicine and powerful warriors, Torino Kingdom. He heads there to improve his medical knowledge and master Monster Point. But here's where things take a major turn. Luffy's path is completely different. In the original story, he met Rayleigh, but since he never went to Sabaody in this timeline, he has no idea Rayleigh even exists. Instead, he remembers something crucial, Ace's Viver card. With no other leads, he follows it, hoping to reunite with Ace. When they finally meet, Ace, already hunting Blackbeard, is stunned to see Luffy searching for him. But Luffy isn't here for a simple reunion. He needs to learn Haki. He explains how Crocodile completely overwhelmed him, and if he doesn't get stronger, he can't protect his crew. Ace, knowing firsthand how essential Haki is against Logia users, doesn't hesitate. He directs Luffy to Whitebeard, saying that if there's anyone strong enough to train him, it's the strongest man in the world. And so, in this timeline, Luffy meets Whitebeard. Luffy's wild personality clashes with the old legend, leading to some hilarious and dangerous moments. But Whitebeard, recognizing his potential, takes an interest in him. He decides to test Luffy, forcing him to prove he's worth training. But the biggest change? Ace, wanting to help his brother, questions his priorities and pauses his hunt for Blackbeard. That means, for now, Marineford never happens. Now, if you are enjoying this video so far and want more interesting videos like this, why not subscribe? Yeah, go on, click it. 2 years have passed. 2 long years since they swore they would return. And now, the Straw Hats finally reunite in Water 7. Each of them has changed, not just in power, but in resolve. Zoro's presence alone feels heavier, his swords sharper than ever. Sanji moves with an effortless grace that hints at something monstrous beneath. Nami's gaze holds a confidence she once lacked. Usopp stands taller, no longer hiding behind false bravado. Chopper carries himself like a warrior, not just a doctor. And Luffy, he's a force to be reckoned with. But despite their growth, they haven't forgotten why they're here. The promise they made, the vow to reclaim Alabasta. With a small amount of money they each managed to gather over 2 years, they finally repair the Going Merry. Not an upgrade, but enough to set sail again. And this time, they have a destination. Vivi left them a log pose before they parted ways. Alabasta is waiting. The moment they step onto Alabasta's shores, it's clear this is not the country they once knew. Gone are the bright markets, the bustling crowds, the life that once filled the kingdom. Instead, they find fear, silence, and ruin. Crocodile's rule has suffocated the land. His grip is tighter than ever. The people, they don't even dare to whisper rebellion anymore. But the Straw Hats don't care about whispers. They need answers. First, they have to find Vivi. Their search takes them deep into the heart of the ruined kingdom, until finally, they find her, hidden away in the ruins of an old rebel base. Vivi stands. The moment she sees them, time stops. She doesn't speak at first, neither do they, because before words, there's something more important: relief. Then it happens. Vivi collapses into Luffy's arms, sobbing, years of pain and loneliness crashing down. I waited for so long. The crew is silent, letting her cry, letting her pain sink in. Sanji's cigarette snaps in his fingers, his face dark with fury. What kind of people would do this to a lady? Zoro tightens his grip on his swords. Usopp clenches his fists. Even Chopper, usually so gentle, trembles with rage. And Luffy, he doesn't say a word, but his shadow looms over them all. His presence alone is suffocating. And at last, the war for Alabasta has begun. Baroque works? A threat? Not anymore. The Straw Hats aren't just stronger, they're on a completely different level. Mr. One, once a nightmare for Zoro, barely manages to react before he's cut down. Zoro doesn't struggle this time, he dominates. Sanji moves like a ghost, his legs a blur, striking down opponents before they can even register the attack. Nami controls the battlefield with weather itself, bending the very sky to her will. Usopp no longer runs, he stands his ground, his sniping so precise that enemies don't even see their defeat coming. Chopper's Monster Point is no longer wild, it's controlled destruction, tearing through the enemy like a storm. And Luffy, he doesn't waste time. He walks past the chaos, straight toward the palace, straight towards Crocodile. Crocodile is as smug as ever, mocking Luffy for daring to return. He doesn't believe the boy who lost to him before can be any different now. But then, Luffy draws his sword. The moment is chilling. The carefree, reckless pirate Luffy once was is gone. In his place stands a warrior who has trained under Whitebeard himself, a man who has seen what true strength looks like. And as Luffy's sword hums with power, Crocodile finally feels something he hasn't in years: fear. Luffy doesn't waste time. The moment Crocodile moves, Luffy is already behind him. His blade cuts clean through the air, forcing the warlord to retreat. Crocodile scoffs, transforming into sand. This time, Luffy can see it. He's learned Haki, and it changes everything. Every attack Crocodile throws at him is dodged or countered. Every time he tries to slip into sand, Luffy's blade cuts through it. The once invincible Logia ability that made him untouchable is useless. Luffy's observation Haki lets him read Crocodile's movements. His armament Haki lets him cut through even the toughest sand defenses. The battle isn't close. Crocodile, furious, tries one last desperate move, turning the entire battlefield into a wasteland, draining everything of moisture in a final bid to crush Luffy. But Luffy doesn't let him. In a single decisive moment, Luffy shatters Crocodile's claw with his sword, slashes through his chest, and sends him crashing into the ruins of Alabasta. Crocodile, broken and defeated, can do nothing but stare in shock. The once untouchable warlord lays defeated, barely conscious, fear in his eyes for the first time. Luffy stands over him, no longer the reckless rookie, no longer the weakling he mocked years ago. With Crocodile's fall, his grip on Alabasta shatters. The people rise, the rebellion ignites, and at the heart of it all, the Straw Hats stand victorious. Vivi watches, tears in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of joy, because her country, her people are free. The promise has been fulfilled, and the adventure, it's only just beginning. Well, that was just part 1 of this series. But what happens next? If Luffy is truly a swordsman, how does the world change after Crocodile's fall? The balance of power is shifting. Who rises, who falls, and what new challenges await? Find out in the next part. Until then, click on this video where we break down what if the strongest marine characters had their own pirate crew. Go on, click it.